Radio Raheem with George Groves. Last time I talked to you, I think you had on boxing trunks and your hands were still wrapped up. And before the main event tonight, maybe the fight even before that, I saw you and Carl Froch standing there, and he was giving you the glare, man. And I was wondering, are they putting this on, or is there still tension there between the two of you?
I hope not, but you never know with Carl. You got to keep your eye on him. Like, I'm glad you were watching. I didn't see it. I usually slip and slide, and I've got good peripheral vision, luckily, still. It might come at some point. Hopefully not too soon.
Being close to the action like you were tonight, are there still any instincts of wanting to climb through the ropes?
No. There really isn't. I don't know if that's strange or not. I think, you sound like you're just moaning and ungrateful, but I had my time boxing. I loved it. I got everything out I wanted out of it. It became a bit of a slog for me to finally win that world title. When I finally did, it was like, we're there, and the work that was going in, the work to reward was it was slowly outweighing, and I had a big win against Eubank Jr, defending my belt with a dislocated shoulder. I rushed off in an ambulance to A&E, and you're thinking, I'm glad I'm only going to go one more time. So maybe that's why I ain't got the itch to get back in there. But I'm still pretty newbie retired, in a couple of years into it. You never say never. Maybe in a few more years' time, I get that itch. But the difference between needing to and wanting to, you really feel it when you have to and you go for a run or something. You have to go on a diet, and you're like, I don't need to go on a diet anymore. So I want to look good, but I don't really cut it.
Yeah, you want the glory, but the sacrifice gets a little bit too much to handle. And they say the highs in boxing are like no other, and so are the lows. You mentioned Eubank Jr. Obviously, we all turned up tonight initially having expected to see him in the main event, and his second opponent, falling out. What do you think is going through a fighter like Chris's mind at this stage, having been so disappointed on the night and still having to get it together and fight whatever they put in front of him next?
Yeah, it's got to be really tough. First of all, having the change of opponent fight week is disturbing. You're not really worried about the opponent as such, but you're worried about, is this actually going to happen? You want to you want to be focused on the fight, but it's hard to have that total focus when there's an element that it might not even happen. And then it finally gets made. You've got this new opponent. Okay, I get my head around that, and then he can't. His medicals don't come through properly, or whatever the final reason was that the fight's off. He must be bitterly disappointed that but that might not hit him until tomorrow morning. When he wakes up and he's supposed to have performed. Had his picture in the paper. Had his moment in the light, but so it might take a little while, but he's gonna have to regroup real quick because they'll want to get him out soon. He's done all this preparation. He's gonna want to fight. He's gonna want to put on a display. He's gonna probably want to get paid if he hasn't been paid yet. So that might take. It might be in 2 weeks' time. Might be in 4-6 weeks' time. I know they're rushing to get him out soon, but you don't want to over peak either. I'm waffling on now, but he's peaked for tonight. If he's going to have to ride that now, if he comes out again in 3 weeks' time, then how does he peak again? It's quite difficult for a fighter when you get to that point of championship level, and you've got to be that precise.
It's been a tough 7 days for Britain in the main event. We've seen Anthony Joshua lose for the second time right here in London as well. And you talk about how tough it is to come back from the disappointment in the sport. What do you think is going through Joshua's mind now that it's well after the day after and it's starting to settle in?
I'm not sure. I don't really know Anthony that well. Never spent any time with him or with any of his camp. The comment straight after the fight was sort of contentment. It was I'm not going to go away and sulk. I'm not going to cry. But he's just lost his world titles. Of course, he's got that safety net of a rematch, and he was straight away saying, "Well, I'm going to execute that rematch clause. I want the rematch." But there'll probably be a lot of thinking now. There'll be a lot of he knows that he's going to have to be substantially better to win the rematch. He probably is believing that Usyk's going to be better in their rematch as well. So it's going to be tough to gauge, and he seems like the sort of guy who is happy to listen, to absorb, to bring new people in, to try new things. It wouldn't surprise me if he gets to that stage now where if he's really hungry, if he really wants to go back and win his belts back, if he really wants to, on that road to undisputed, as he spoke about the last year or so, he's probably have to make some serious changes, and that'll be fascinating. It'll bring in a whole lot of pressure because every change is going to have huge questions thrust upon it. But I think that something has to change.
Do you think he needs a change in his team?
I don't know about his team. I know he made additions recently. Tactically, he didn't get it right on the night, and whether that's his fault or whether that's the preparation's fault, or whether that's someone else's fault, I don't know. Sometimes just a change is good when there's nothing wrong, and I wouldn't advise that or not. I know Callum Smith has moved on he's spent his whole career, I think, with Joe Gallagher. Now he's training with Buddy, and there might not have been a breakdown in that relationship, but it might have just been, we've done well together. Let's try a change. Let's just try something else. Let's freshen it up. So maybe that that happens to all fighters. So maybe that might be their case, but maybe not. I don't know.
You've done well as of late with predictions. We do expect to see an Usyk Joshua 2. Do you feel Joshua can make whatever changes are necessary and reclaim his titles?
I don't, to be honest. Heavyweight's always come with that massive question mark, and the question for me before this fight was, I don't know enough about Usyk really to make a truly confident prediction of is he going to be able to cope with the size and power of Joshua. And I said if I was a better man, I'd say Joshua, but this might be his hardest fight to date. So it was like trying to sit on the fence without. I think the rematch, I think Usyk will be better. I think he's showed that he can compete at the top level, and he would have learned a lot about Joshua from that fight, spending them 12 rounds together with him. He knows his distance now. He creates fantastic angles. He always changes the distance with the feet. He'll touch you with shots before putting any power in it. He never overcommits to a shot, so he's never really left vulnerable. And then because he is such a big dude, like they all are at that weight, once he does land a few shots, his accuracy is on point. It's going to have an effect, and then he can start putting his punches together. He's a great combination puncher. He might go on to dominate the division. Who knows?
Before we get the answer in the ring to that question, there's another question to be asked. If yet another champion can reclaim his titles, of course I'm talking about, or his title, of course I'm talking about Deontay Wilder in the third match against Fury. Do you see that fight outcome any different than the second?
I do. I can see a better Wilder than we saw the last time. I think Wilder, just looking at him, he didn't look quite right. There was lots of excuses after, but it felt like the excuses were coming beforehand. He come in real light. He looked like he was in the wrong sort of headspace. And he was the champion, and he sort of maybe had the gift of getting the draw the first time. A lot of people thought Fury beat him. So, it wasn't quite the kick up the backside that he's had now, losing his belt and being out in the cold. For a guy who had, almost a record-breaking defences, number of defences of his heavyweight title, still felt he didn't get the recognition that he deserved. Now he's out in the cold. He wants his belts back. He hasn't took step-aside money to let Joshua fight Fury or anything like that. He wants his belts back. He wants to be the man. He's got that equalizer power, like that crazy equalizer power. And Fury's going in there with a different mindset now. He's the champion. He's lived it up. People are finally backing him. For so many years, he didn't have the recognition he probably felt he deserved. And I know that tortured him mentally. Winning the belts in Germany and coming back to UK, and no one really was bothered about it. So, but now he's the man. Everyone backs him. Everyone favours him. He put in a tremendous performance against Wilder, and for me, I was like, wow, this guy finally 6'9", 19 stone, is fighting like a big dude. He's backing the guy up from the front foot, standing his ground, trying to hit him with power shots. If he comes out and does that again in the rematch, the rematch, then you got to pick him as a favourite. But I generally wouldn't be surprised, and if the odds are favourable, then why not have a little cheeky one on on Wilder for a stoppage, you know, mid to late rounds.
Boy, it sounds like you got a couple of pounds down on that one already.
No. I haven't checked. I'm not a gambler. But but once we know the results, then we can all walk around confident, like, yeah, I know boxing. But beforehand, it's hard to make a prediction.
Well, there's no love lost between those two, but there's a spark of bad blood in a fight that'll happen just a couple weeks after that. Obviously, Canelo Alvarez and Caleb Plant kicked off their press conference with quite the scuffle. What did you make of that moment? And do you think Caleb Plant can unseat the #1 pound for pound on most people's list right now?
You know, I genuinely think this is Alvarez's hardest fight at super middleweight. Caleb Plant, there was, you know, when I was boxing, I'd seen his name, I'd watched a bit of him, and I was like question marks on about, is he gonna actually have it when he gets to the top level? But he does. You know, he's very elusive. He's big for the weight. He's fast. He's like got really fast hands. But he's got a bit of punch power now about him, and he's got a lot of confidence and a lot of swagger. And this might get under Canelo's skin. You know, already like they've had a confrontation. You know, and Alvarez used to being the man, you know, so if someone can get under his skin, then that might pay dividends in the end. I think this will definitely be his toughest test at super middleweight. I'm not sure Caleb Plant beats him. I still make Alvarez a heavy favourite, but you know, he's giving away a lot of height against a guy who is very fast. If he starts jamming him to the chest with a jab and jamming, and then finding, you know, not overcommitting with headshots when Alvarez rotates him so well and counters so well. But I can't see Alvarez just being able to walk Plant down, jumping in with uppercut, like rear uppercuts and trying to hook off of them and stuff like that. I think he'll have to come high hands, push him back, get him on the ropes, and then let his hands go. But if Plant's smart enough and can keep it at that double distance, he'll push him.
We would have seen Roy Jones in the corner tonight. We might have to see George Groves in somebody's corner soon. You're giving quite the analysis for each fight. You can put the mitts on your hands now that you took the gloves off. But lastly, before I let you go, I would like to turn your attention to the retirement of Manny Pacquiao. Obviously, being a retired fighter now yourself, what do you make of his legacy? And again, now that retirement's probably settled in, it's been a couple days official, what do you think is going through the mind of a fighter like Pacquiao?
Well, I've no idea with Pacquiao, because it feels like he's been boxing forever, you know. And I think it's the right time for him to retire. And what a phenomenal fighter! What a phenomenal fighter! You know, to fight in the era of Floyd Mayweather and still be sort of more popular in for many people, you know. And just crazy records, unbelievable fighter. I was fortunate enough to see him box Cotto at the Mandalay Bay. I was like a newbie pro. It must have been 2009. And went out there. I got a little bit too drunk that night. I got carried away in Vegas. I was a bit jet lagged. I had a few drinks. And I watched the fight. It was way up in the gods. But it was phenomenal that night. And he sung, I think he did karaoke at Mandalay Bay the Sunday night.
Yeah.
I didn't get tickets for that. But maybe I should have. Maybe that's the new career. Maybe he'll be on tour singing.
He does have a record, you know. He's put out like an album.
Well, yeah, there you go. I mean, is there anything this man can't do, you know? No, a tremendous ambassador for the sport, phenomenal talent. There might not be anyone to ever get close to the records that he set. It was a pleasure to have seen him. I'd love to have been I wish I was fighting on the undercard that night.
Well, as you see, everybody that walks by loves to see you as well. You're an ambassador for the sport yourself. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I'm glad you're a happy man in retirement. Radio Raheem with George Groves.